And welcome back, everybody, to the Late Sports Debate. So in this next segment we have here, I just wanted to quickly introduce my co-host again. Once again, his name's Tyler Schillinger, like you guys have heard before.
What's up, guys?
So with that, I just wanted to kind of get a quick interview with him and kind of give you guys, the viewers, a little background information on him, tell you what he's all about. So, Tyler, you up for a couple questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. All right, so our first question is, where are you from? Like, are you from around Wisconsin area? Or?
I am. I've lived in Wisconsin all my life. I'm from the West Bend area, so about 30 minutes away from campus here in Mequon. So
awesome. So, how has like the transition been from like just living 30 minutes away? Is it tough at times, or is it kind of nice having family close by?
Honestly, it's far enough where like I feel like I'm by myself and like I'm doing my own thing over here, but it's also close enough where if I need something or whatever and I want to go see my family, I'm not that far away. So I think it's like the perfect distance.
Okay.
Being honest.
Awesome. Yeah. So have you, I know that you said you're from like the West Bend area. So you were born and raised in that area? You like your whole life been there, like same house, kind of same area the whole time?
Well, actually, I was born in the West Bend Hospital that currently right now is just a health center, a Frederick Health Center. They transferred. But yeah, I was born in West Bend, but my parents did live in Ellington before, and then I was raised there for 2 years, and then my parents decided to sell their house and build a house, and then we moved into West Bend. So yeah.
Awesome. So another thing that a lot of our viewers might not know is that you have worked on a farm your whole life. So
basically, yep.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like how that is and like your relationship to like working on the farm and yeah, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, a funny story, I guess. My grandfather plays a huge part in me growing up on this farm and just a big part in who I am today. But a funny little icebreaker, I guess I always say with people when they ask how is it working on a farm and stuff is my uncle Tom and my uncle Tim, they would always like push me to get into the big machinery even though I was little, and my grandma didn't like it.
Yeah. And
my mom was always hesitant, but by the time my last day that I was 3 years old, before I turned 4, the day before my birthday, they had me driving a skid loader around all by myself.
That's
and I was
insane.
like back dragging the driveway and everything. I have photos of it. And I don't remember it, but like looking back at it, it's kind of cool to see that. So
yeah, that's really cool and interesting to see. So, like, take us through, like, an average day you'd have on the farm now. Like, what are your responsibilities, or do they come different with the different seasons?
Right, yeah. So seasons play a huge part in what our daily tasks are, but there are some daily chores that stick to the same thing. Typically, every morning, I'll get there at either 7:30 or 8, depending on the average day. Sometimes it's earlier. But we'll get there. My uncle will take care of the chickens. We have some chickens. And then Gatlin and I, my buddy Gatlin, will end up taking care of the steers in their pens and putting bales down for them to lay on. And then we'll have to feed them, obviously, so that takes about 2 hours that we'll feed. And then from there, it's about noon, and we'll eat lunch, and then we'll take on whatever tasks we have to for the rest of the day.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So what time do you usually have to wake up for this?
Honestly, it depends on the day and it depends on the season. Like I said, this last winter, when we have to go and spread fertilizer out in the fields, we have to wait until the very early morning when the ground is still frozen rather than in the middle of the day when the sun's coming out and the ground's thawing. So there's some days where I'm getting up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and I'm punching in at like 4:45 at that time. But there's other days like throughout the summer where I'll typically be getting up at like 6 in the morning.
Okay, so usual times around 6 a.m.
Yeah,
okay.
Typically.
Understandable. Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people around the country definitely don't really realize what you guys do on the farms, and it really goes without a lot of appreciation. So
I would agree. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for what you do. So, all right, so talking about kind of like you growing up, did you play any sports growing up throughout?
I did.
Awesome. Let's hear about those.
Well, when I was very young, I played t-ball at our local town center. They had a t-ball league, and that was always fun. I have a couple trophies up in my room.
Nice.
But then I transferred into a different school, and from there we had like a midget league, I guess you could say. So I played baseball basically my entire life.
Okay.
And once I got into grade school, we couldn't start playing basketball until I think it was 5th grade is when we first could start playing basketball. And that just blew up in my mind. I enjoyed being a team leader. I was the point guard from little on, and being in control of the game. And I was the team captain then from 6th all the way through 8th grade.
Awesome.
So that was always awesome. And in high school, I did play baseball. I was a pitcher. I was always leadoff hitter and for baseball, and I played shortstop and second base, and I really enjoyed that. And then for basketball, I was the starting point guard until we had some coaching issues in my junior and senior year, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But honestly, I picked up a sport that in high school that I never ever thought that I would ever play in my life. I mean, a buddy of mine was like the tennis team.
Huh.
I never ever would have thought I would have been playing tennis,
That's
let alone
interesting.
like it.
Yeah.
So junior, it was, what was it? I think the end of my sophomore year. Yeah. My sophomore year, a buddy came up to me, and he was like, hey, man, we don't have enough people for the tennis team this year, and we're trying to gather as many people as we can. Would you be interested? And at that time, we were still, for baseball, we were considering switching into spring ball rather than summer ball. So I was pretty hesitant at the time. So I talked to my head coach because I was pretty close with him at the time. I was like, what's going on with the season? You know, what are we going to do? Are we going to switch to spring ball next year or not? Because if we were, then I would tell him no because I want to keep playing baseball. But he ended up saying that in the next 4 years we might end up switching, but until then we're going to keep with the summer league ball. So I was like, you know what, screw it. Why don't I try something else?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I could have ran track or something, but running isn't really my forte.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried tennis, and honestly, I just fell in love with it. There's just something about playing with. I was a doubles player, so playing.
Okay, you were a doubles.
Yeah,
That was my next question.
yeah, I was a doubles player, and there was just something about smashing the crap out of that ball.
Yeah,
and just screaming.
Get some anger out,
yeah,
I'm sure,
it's just such a fun game, and learning. Like my first year, I wasn't that great. I mean, I played on JV league rather than varsity because I've never really played tennis ever in my life.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that had been going to tennis camps, and all their life they've been raised on this sport. When I have never even swung a tennis racket before in my life.
Yeah.
And it was just so cool learning about how to put spin on a ball and where to hit the ball on your serve in order to get it into the service box. And it was just, I don't know, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
adapting.
That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about sports is there's so many options that we have out there, and you may be as a kid, your mindset's set on a particular sport that you see on TV, but then once you get out there and start playing other stuff, you realize, wow, there's a lot of options out there and a lot of different activities that you can do. So, all right. So, as you said earlier, you're from Wisconsin, growing up here. So I take it you were a Bucks fan, Brewers fan, and a Packers fan. Is that correct?
All the above. Yes,
awesome.
You got me.
Cool. So, is there a team out of those three in particular that you watched more growing up, or was it all about even?
Honestly, if I'm being completely straight up with you, it was the Brewers. Our family always ended up watching the Brewers games.
Yeah,
we always did. In the winter or whatever, we would have some Packer parties and whatnot. Okay. So we kept up with the Packers fairly heavily, but not as much as the Brewers. And honestly, now that I've been working so much, I haven't really gotten the time to watch. But I'll put them on the radio, and listen in. So
yeah, good to hear. So, along with that, just kind of another question going with that. Would you say there was a favorite athlete that you had as a child and growing up that you kind of admired out of those three teams, or even anyone else from the major professional leagues?
Yeah, I guess it's a toss-up because we are big Packer fans and we're big Brewer fans, as I said before. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's honestly a toss-up between Ryan Braun and Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Because between those two sports, those athletes were just, at the time when I was growing up, they were just starting, and they came off very, very well, and they were just huge leaders. I mean, I know Ryan Braun had that steroid issue, which kind of was heartbreaking or whatever to find out about. But before that, even, he was just a super humble player.
Yeah.
And
yeah, like you said, both great leaders too. So
that's kind of, I guess, what I admired out of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So one more question before we head to our next music breaks. That would be, so not necessarily like anything you've learned from the books in college, but what is one thing you've learned from like I guess being more independent and living on your own in college?
Ooh, that's a really, really good question. I mean, I really enjoy what college has done for me this last 2 years, and I enjoy what it's going to give to me in the next two. But I guess taking that step from high school, living at your parents' house, coming home every day after school, and I guess for my case, going to work, one of the biggest things that college has taught me is your parents, even though they love you and whatnot, they're never going to be there for the rest of your life. And in a way of saying it, you have to learn how to mature and grow up and be able to take care of yourself and even take care of others as well. So like living with you guys, one of the biggest things that I really enjoy doing is helping you guys out and making sure that you're succeeding as well. So I guess for me, it's almost taking on that father figure and wanting to like see other people succeed as much as me, which I never thought that I would get until I stepped away from my house.
Yeah,
and
totally understand that. Yeah, that's definitely cool.
So,
all right, Tyler. Well, that was some great stuff. So, all right. So we'll everyone stay tuned. We're gonna take a quick music break, and after that, we'll be talking about our next segment, talking about the Brewers. So stay tuned, guys. And welcome back, everybody, to the Late Sports Debate. So our next segment is going to be kind of different than our usual discussion that we have. I'm actually going to talk about a sporting news that's happened a couple years ago, but is still kind of near and dear to my heart, and kind of like changed at least my like view of being a sports fan for I honestly would say, depending on how this turns out, the rest of my life. So. That sporting event would be the moving of the Chargers from San Diego to Los Angeles. So I just want to kind of give a quick, like, brief review of like the Chargers' history in San Diego. So first, I wanted to say the Chargers originally started in LA. So I guess in a sense they did start. They are coming home, because many people have coined that phrase when the Chargers moved back to LA, that they're coming home. But they were only there for 1 year, which seems kind of ironic for an actual home, because the next 56 years the Chargers were in San Diego, showing that that's really their home. And I just think it's hard to call a place where you were for 1 year home versus a place that you were at 56 years at home. So kind of interesting there. So the next year, in 1960, the Chargers moved to San Diego, thus beginning their time as the San Diego Chargers. They started their first year at a little stadium called Balboa Stadium, which still stands to this day, but is more used for like recreational purposes. Some Pop Warner games are played there. In 1967, the Chargers got their first stadium and their only stadium really in San Diego, which was Qualcomm Stadium. It was previously called San Diego Stadium, and then it was changed to Jack Murphy Stadium as well. So, and Qualcomm Stadium was around a home of the Chargers from 1967 to 2016. There were many huge things that happened in this stadium for those long years that it was there. One of the biggest ones happened within like the first couple years there, and that was when the Chargers actually won the AFL championship. So in 1963, the NFL wasn't completely the NFL yet. It was basically the NFC side of things. So there was the NFL and the AFL. So the AFL eventually turned into the AFC, which turns into the NFC versus AFC, which created the Super Bowl. However, that didn't happen for a couple more years. So in 1963, there was two football leagues, the NFL and AFL, and the Chargers were originally in the AFL. And in that, they within their third year, they made it to the AFL championship and actually beat the Boston Patriots by a grand total of a lot of points. So it was kind of a huge win for the Chargers and kind of showed like a bright future for them that maybe they could be a dynasty. So they did go on to win a couple more division championships. They actually won one in 1961, 1963, 1964, and 1965. After that, they kind of went through like a rough patch and weren't really that dynasty that everyone was hoping they would be. The AFL and NFL merged, like I said earlier, and the Chargers really kind of were out of success for a long time. That was until a young quarterback came in, kind of a gunslinger guy that not a lot of people really knew about, coming out of the University of Oregon. That was Dan Fouts. And he came in, his first couple years were kind of rough, but in 1979 he started getting the hang of everything, and he became the leader of the team and became one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. In 1979 he led the NFL in passing yards, and the next couple years, he led the Chargers to division titles. So 1979, 1981, and 1980 and 1981, they were all division champs, making the AFC Championship in 1980 and 1981. Some of the highlight years of the San Diego Chargers, this era was nicknamed as the Air Coryell years in honor of the head coach of the Chargers, Don Coryell. So during this time, the Chargers had set a record passing offense, where Dan Fouts was putting up staggering numbers, led by his wide receivers, guys like Kellen Winslow, John Jefferson, Wes Chandler, some of the big-name receivers of the late 70s, early 80s, were taking storm of the NFL. So, although they were unable to ever win a Super Bowl during that time as well. So, fast forward a little bit, we'll move throughout the mid-'80s and late 80s, where the Chargers yet again went through another rough patch. Fast forward to 1992. So in 1992, the Chargers got a couple new guys. They're the biggest player on the team, most well-known, and possibly one of the best Chargers ever, was linebacker by the name of Junior Seau. He became the heart and soul of the Chargers from all throughout the 90s and early 2000s. One of the best defensive players, in my opinion, to ever play the game. Just an outstanding playmaker. As a lot of you may know, the current thing having to do with CTE and the brain injuries that happened after the finding of Junior Seau when he committed suicide and said that he wanted people to look at his brain. So he's one that started the research on head injuries and the NFL looking into those and the finding of CTE. So Junior was a great man and also just a great leader for the Chargers. So 1992, they were able to win their first AFC West championship since 1981. So kind of a big stretch there of 11 years. Then fast forward 2 more years, this would be arguably the best season in Chargers history. This was 1994, the glory year, or the glory year, as my dad likes to say, because one of the best years of his life for being a sports fan. That was the year the Chargers made it to their one and only Super Bowl. So they went 11-5 and kind of weren't really, they were kind of written off. No one really thought they would be anything. So it was kind of like an interesting year for them. But the Chargers ended up going 11-5, beat the Miami Dolphins in the divisional round of the playoffs, then stunned the Pittsburgh Steelers and faced against Steve Young and the 49ers. Now, the Super Bowl didn't go as planned, as the Chargers absolutely got destroyed 49-26, but still, it was such a great time for the city of San Diego to see their team actually make it to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is obviously the biggest sporting event in America each year, and to have your home team make it is one of the greatest feelings in the world. So that year for San Diego sports fans, they felt like they were on top of the world. Even though they didn't necessarily win the game, they made it and proven that they were one of the best teams to be reckoned with. However, after this year, the Chargers weren't able to win another even division title for 10 years. So they went into another slump of losing, and people thought maybe there'll be a dynasty, and yet again, there was nothing happening there. So then we fast forward to another great player, one of the arguably, honestly in my opinion, the best Charger player ever to play, and that would be LaDainian Tomlinson. LaDainian Tomlinson was drafted in 2001 with the first overall pick where he soonly began to be one of the best, or number 5th overall pick, where he's soon to become the Chargers' all-time leading rusher, all-time scoring leader, everything like that. Obviously, one of the biggest and best running backs ever to play in the NFL. So while he was there, in 2004, the Chargers won their next division title with the help of Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates, all at the forefront of the Chargers. However, they were once again defeated in the playoffs by the New York Jets on a missed field goal by kicker Nate Kading. So this was kind of interesting because the Chargers were on the up and they thought everything was going well. So in 2005, it's supposed to be a promising year again. Chargers maybe will win the division. However, towards the end of the year, the Chargers weren't performing as everyone thought, and the quarterback Drew Brees actually tore his rotator cuff in his shoulder, and people were wondering, that's a huge injury for a quarterback. Is he going to be able to sustain that? And the Chargers didn't think so they ended up letting go of Drew Brees. So the Chargers let go of Drew Brees, and everyone knows how that turned out. He turned out to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So kind of an iffy situation. However, that did bring in the Chargers' current quarterback now, Philip Rivers, who is also one of the greatest players of the Chargers' history. So Philip Rivers comes in, and in 2006 leads the Chargers to their best season ever. They go 14-2, have the best record in the NFL, and the number 1 overall seed in the AFC playoffs. They then go on to play against the New England Patriots and have a lead the whole time. And however, a late interception of Tom Brady, all Marlon McCree had to do was just take a knee. Instead, he fumbles the ball and gives Tom Brady another chance. Tom Brady goes on to win the game in overtime. And the Patriots go on to play the Colts in the AFC Championship. Just another thing of Tom Brady, showing his greatness as well. So then fast forward the next year, the Chargers win their second in a row AFC West championship. So then they go on and they win in the wild card round against the Tennessee Titans. Then they play the Indianapolis Colts. Philip Rivers tears his ACL, and they're still able to get the victory. The next week, Philip Rivers comes in playing on a torn ACL, play the New England Patriots, and fall a couple points short against a New England Patriots team that hadn't lost all year. So one of the gutsiest performances in NFL history, I think, playing on a torn ACL against an 18-0 team. Talk about going against all odds stacked up against you. So kind of crazy, gutsy performance we see out of Philip Rivers in that game. Fast forward to the next year. The Chargers go 8-8 but are still able to win another AFC West title. Then the next year, 2009, able to win another AFC West title. This, however, in 2009 would be the last AFC West title the Chargers would win as a member of the San Diego Chargers. So after the 2016 season, it was found out that the Chargers would no longer be a football team in San Diego and they would be moving to Los Angeles. Now this is where things get a little fishy. So Dean Spanos was quoted as saying when he initially said that they were moving to Los Angeles, he said, "I'm looking forward, not backward. I spent half my life here. I leave behind a lot of friends and a lot of great memories, but life goes on. There are always a lot of changes in life, and we know this is not going to be easy. But we made a decision, we're committed to it, and our family is 100% behind it. What's happened has happened." Now, to me, this quote rubbed me the wrong way because he didn't really say thank you to the fans or anything that have stuck by him for 56 years as members of the San Diego Chargers family. Instead, he kind of just said, we're moving on to LA. And this was tough to swallow, but I honestly didn't want to be a fan for a while. However, I ended up sticking by them and rooting for them even when they moved to LA. However, the thing that got me on this is the Chargers would move to LA because of stadium problems in San Diego. However, they moved to LA and are going to be renting from a stadium, the Los Angeles Rams stadium, for however long they stay there. And they are currently in a stadium, StubHub Center, that seats 27,000 people. Now, this just doesn't make sense to me. They lost all their loyal fans in San Diego because of this, and now they can't even sell out a 27,000-seat stadium. This is mind-boggling to me, and I honestly don't understand why the move happened. I believe each side said they could do all that they could, but I believe that is not the case. When you think about it, if a team's been there for 56 years, there's got to be a way to figure it out. That's been my opinion on this the whole way through. And just to see the Chargers leave, the organization to leave like that, it really broke a lot of people's hearts. And even some of the players' hearts. I know the Chargers quarterback, Phillip Rivers, still lives in San Diego, and he makes the drive from San Diego to LA each and every day, which is 2 to 3 hour drive each day, there and back. So just kind of shows that there isn't really a fan base in LA for the Chargers. LA is now a Los Angeles Rams town, and that's where the Rams will have a lot of fans because they've been there in the past. And the Rams recently just went to the Super Bowl, showing that they do have more success than an up-and-coming Chargers team. So it's just always been an interesting thing. I'm not 100% sure if the Chargers will stay there. There have been rumors that LaDainian Tomlinson, who is now working in the Chargers organization, might get a group together to maybe buy the Chargers back from Dean Spanos and bring them to San Diego. But it'll be interesting to see what happens and see what the future holds for the Chargers organization and the Los Angeles Chargers now, to see if they will continue to go with the Rams and rent from them in their stadium, or if they will ever decide to come back home to San Diego and try to build a stadium there and come back to where all their loyal fans are. I think that would be the best move for the Chargers. However, I hope all of them, I wish the organization good luck and hope they have a great rest of the season this year. So with that, we'll be taking another music break. Please stay tuned. Thank you.